Introduction to the Wine course.
Welcome to the Lobster Inc. Wine Professional course.
Wine is a big subject. It has been around since the start of civilization. There are thousands and thousands of different wines, and people for some reason have turned it into a snobbish and scary subject to learn about. And every day people from all over the world have to serve wine in restaurants, bars and hotels without ever being told what all the fuss is about. They end up dreading the customer who knows a lot and are frustrated as their team members sell more wine than them day in and day out. We're here to change that. Wine can be as simple and as complex as you want. This course will teach you the basics so that when you're done, you will be someone who can confidently talk about wine and serve guests with knowledge and style. Let's start by briefly looking at what is contained in this course and how your life in wine can carry on far beyond it. This course is divided up into 3 levels. In level 1, we'll cover the basics, starting with understanding what wine is and why so many people from all over the world for thousands of years have enjoyed it. The next step is to understand what flavor is and how we experience it. This will be like starting to learn a new language, the language of flavor. We'll then head for the world of the vineyard, starting with the grape and its individual parts, before seeing how the plant that produces it lives and how the outside world affects it. In the last part of level 1, we will learn about the winemaking process and how grapes are transformed from berries on a vine into bottles of wine that you have to sell every day. At the end of level 1, you won't be a wine expert just yet, but we'll have equipped ourselves with the tools needed to start getting deep into wine. In level 2, we are going to find out about the different types of wines out there. We'll start off by looking at some of the different styles of wine in the world. Then we're going to look in some detail at the major grape varieties grown all around the world, like Shiraz, Merlot and Sauvignon Blanc. We will see how these particular grapes like to be grown and what sort of wines they produce. By the end of this level, you will know something about most of the wines that you see. In level 3 of the course, we will focus on service. You will learn, amongst other skills, how to store wine, open wine professionally, and decant an old bottle of wine. The service level of the course will help you in assisting guests on wine choices, handling faulty bottles of wine, and trying to make selling wine something that you love to do. Oh, and Gerald. We almost forgot about him. Sorry, Gerald. Gerald is a waiter just like you. All he knows about wine is that everyone knows more than he does. He has just started work at a restaurant and is going to join you in this Venus trip. Be patient with Gerald. He's a little slow. I said we'll have room to grow, Gerald. Calm down. The best thing about wine is that it is something you can learn about forever. Wine never sits still long enough for you to learn everything. There are always new regions producing new wines and, of course, new vintages every year. Wine is a living, changing thing. This also means that nobody else knows everything about wine. They might know more than you, but every single person can learn more about wine. Gerald, I think you can learn something about just about everything. If after this course you find yourself trying to taste and smell everything you can, and then looking for those aromas and tastes in wine, maybe a career as a sommelier is for you. A sommelier is the highest position in wine service. They take care of creating a wine list, ordering and controlling the stock of wines in the restaurant, and looking after the training of other staff on wine service. While we are dealing with wine here, sommeliers must also have an in-depth knowledge on the products and services relating to beer, spirits, cocktails, non-alcoholic beverages, and coffee. Just like the head chef in a restaurant is in charge of all aspects of food, the sommelier is in charge of drinks. So while wine is an interesting drink with a long history and gives the opportunity for massive enjoyment, it also is a career path for those who fall in love with it. We hope that by the end of this course, Many of you are thinking about how wine can be part of your lives forever. What is wine? Now that you have a good idea of what to expect on this course, let's start learning a little more about what wine is. In this lesson, we are going to be learning what wine is and why people are so mad for drinking the stuff. Let's start by asking, what is wine? Wine is grape juice. Any one of the thousands and thousands of bottles of wine in the world all started out the same way, as juice inside a grape hanging on a vine. Wine is a drink that is quite different from any other. More than most, wine is sociable. And what makes it one of the best and most enjoyable subjects to discuss and learn about is that it is a drink that is nearly always associated with relaxation, meal times, and conversation. Wine is a drink that people want to enjoy. And all the information you can give people about the wines you serve them will help to increase that enjoyment. Although wine is basically grape juice, it has been transformed by fermentation. We will learn about fermentation later, but you can think of it like Clark Kent going into a phone booth as a dowdy journalist, and coming out the fantastic Superman. It's just like how grape juice goes into a wine cellar as a sweet, simple drink and comes out the other end as a complex, interesting, long-lived drink. What makes this super grape juice all the more interesting and difficult to learn about is that there are so many different types, not just from the different grapes there are, but because of where the grapes are grown, how they are grown, and how the winemaker chooses to make the wine will all have a dramatic effect on the wine's flavor. Two winemakers who take grapes grown in the same place will end up making quite different wines. We will learn about much of this later in the course. It may sound very confusing and even scary. Such a big subject with so many different things to learn about. But don't worry. Just relax and remember that at the end of the day, it's just grape juice. Next, let's learn a bit about why people drink wine. Wine has been drunk for thousands of years, and we will learn a little about wine's history in the next lesson. But for now, let's look at what people today look for in wine. Wine is drunk for a number of reasons. Drinks with alcohol in them have always been consumed socially. They ease the cogs in conversation and lubricate a social situation, promoting bonhomie among those sharing a bottle. For wine, this is even more true, as it is a drink that shares a special bond with food. Wine and food are special partners, and there are certain pairings, such as oysters and champagne, that have been enjoyed for hundreds of years, with each new generation discovering the pleasures of the salty oyster being washed down with a fresh and bubbly champagne. The enjoyment of food and wine is one of civilization's greatest culinary triumphs. After each mouthful of food, if the correct wine has been chosen, the following sip not only enhances the flavor of the dish, but washes and cleanses the palate, preparing it for the next bite. People also enjoy wine in the same way they enjoy literature or film. They have certain tastes or preferences and get excited when they find a new wine, just like you might get excited when you see a new film that you like. And just like friends discussing a new series, film or book, wine lovers will talk about wine for hours, arguing about the wine's merits and flaws until the early hours of the morning. So while wine is on the one hand a drink that can quench your thirst and improve your meal, it is also like a work of art with many aspects that can be discussed, thought about, and pondered. But most of all, wine is enjoyed simply to be enjoyed. Just like a movie you watch to switch off and forget about your day, letting the silly characters and jokes wash over you, so a wine can be enjoyed without having to be thought about all that deeply. The history of wine. Where did wine come from? Who was the first person to make wine from grapes? We have absolutely no clue. What we do know is that whoever was the first wine drinker, history's first wino, lived a very long time ago. Wine is older than history. Wild grapes and the yeast needed to make wine occurred naturally. And early humans considered wine a spontaneous gift from nature. People didn't set out to make wine. They probably just left some grapes in a container which fermented naturally and turned into a strange drink that made you feel funny but good when you drank it. Let's quickly go all the way back in time, 8,000 years ago, and follow briefly the history of wine. 6000 BCE, winemaking technology spreads from the east into places such as Georgia and Iran, where grape winemaking takes place. There is evidence that ancient China made alcoholic drinks from honey and fruit. This technology found its way to the Middle East, where they used it with grapes. 3000 BCE. The Egyptians may have been the first wine experts, as their writing shows that they labeled different amphora with the years of the vintage and who the winemaker was. 1500 BCE. The Phoenicians, an ancient civilization known for trading on ships across the Mediterranean, spread the grapevines we know today across the area and into southern Europe and North Africa. 750 BCE. The famous Greek author Homer writes the Iliad, the oldest work in Western literature, and describes how his characters sailed the wine-dark sea. 500 BCE. By now, wine is found right across Europe, as Greeks and Romans spread the bounty of the vine to their colonies. In ancient Greece, wine was only for the elite, but the Romans made drinking wine popular amongst the wider civilization. Year 0. Christians believe that Jesus turned water into wine, his first miracle. 70 CE. In wine there is truth. Pliny the Elder, another famous writer of antiquity, pens the famous words, "In vino veritas." 200 CE. The Romans first start using wooden barrels to transport wine. They also spread grapevines and wines right across Europe. 600 CE. Winemaking slowly disappears in North Africa and the Middle East as the religion of Islam spreads. 1000 CE. Chateau de Goulaine in France is built and is still operating today, possibly the oldest winery still in business. 1400 CE. During the Middle Ages, wine production increases across Europe. Christian monks especially take to advancing wine technology, keeping records of their best vineyards. Because of many plagues and sicknesses across Europe, wine is safer to drink than water. 1600. Corks are first used as stoppers, and stronger glass bottles are made, allowing for wine to be stored for longer and more easily transported. 1700. Wine spreads across the globe as vines are taken to South America by the Spanish, and a little later, Dutch settlers plant vines in South Africa. In the 1800s, vineyards are also planted in California and Australia. 1830. The modern wine bottle is introduced. Before this point, wine bottles varied tremendously. 1864. Louis Pasteur proves that yeasts are living things that are responsible for fermentation. Before then, no one quite knew how grape juice turned into wine. 1964. Box wine is invented in Australia. 2010. The most expensive bottle of wine is sold. A single bottle of 1896 Lafite Rothschild sells for $230,000. 2000 and something. You take the lobster wine course and join in this rich, tasty and wine-filled history. Wine always starts off as a grape on a vine. The wild grapes of history civilizations, and they chose to keep replanting the sweetest and most delicious types that they found. Over thousands of years, humans have replanted and spread the vines that produce grapes that are better for wine. The spread of civilization has always been accompanied by the planting of vineyards and the making of wine. Wine has been involved in the greatest of nations. It has quenched the thirst of their troops, their politicians, their kings and queens, and their people. Wine has changed since the first glasses were drunk. It has changed as the tastes of people through history have changed. Some like it sweet, some fizzy, others light, and some prefer theirs with honey and herbs. Wine will keep on changing forever. It has been there from the start of civilization, and it will be there in whatever form at the very end. We can't wait to take you on a journey into wine, so that you can learn about and hopefully join in the long line of millions of people throughout history who have sat back at the end of a hard day's work to enjoy a refreshing, calming, and delicious glass of wine. History of wine unfold before us. We saw how it began before history was even recorded, and has carried on being made and drunk right into the present day. From its ancient origins in China and the Middle East thousands of years ago, it has spread right across the globe. But where in the world is wine made today? Let's take a look at this map. As you can see, wine is made right around the globe, more in Europe where it has been made for the longest. But there are vines grown on every continent except Antarctica. But there is something else this map is telling us. Do you notice that the areas where wine is produced fit into two bands? These two bands represent the areas on our planet that in general have the best climate for growing grapes that are good for winemaking. Simply put, it is not too hot or too cold for vines within these bands. We'll see later that it gets a little more complicated than this. But if you want to plant some vines, looking for a spot within these two areas is a good place to start. So there we have the world's vineyards. All of the vineyards in the world amount to around 80,000 square kilometers of vines. Or in other words, all the vines in the planet could fit into the Czech Republic. Not all these vines are going to be used to make wine. Some are used for fresh table grapes, raisins, and grape juice, but the rest are used for wine. And it's quite a lot. Humans produce about 361 million bottles of wine a year from these grapes. But what are these millions and millions of wines? Red? White? Sparkling? Well, let's take a look. Out of all these bottles, just more than half are red wines. And out of those, the majority are going to be Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot. And for white wines, Sauvignon Blanc and Chardonnay are out in front. So just by using these averages, you are more likely to sell a bottle of Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, Sauvignon Blanc or Chardonnay than any other. But the world of wine is a lot more complex than that. There are literally thousands of different types of grapes that will make thousands of different wines. And while many of them are small and obscure, there is still so much to learn to help you find the best wines for your guests. The journey we take into wine is a trip that must fly from country to country, bottle to bottle, trying to understand what makes all wines similar, but each one that little bit different. It's your job to take these lessons to the table and help your diners navigate this complex maze of flavor so that they order a bottle of wine that they will enjoy. It's a tough job, but someone's got to do it. And this course is going to help you get there.